morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to the show. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? Axolotl, I almost missed you then, because I was just setting up some things. I'm glad you think this is chill at the moment. Let me know if the music's too loud. Apparently the music was a bit loud last time. I hope you're well though. I hope you've been having a lovely day, a lovely evening. Good. Fear me. I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm always surprised when people ask me how am I doing, because no one really asks. It's an odd feeling. But yeah, I'm fine, thank you very much. I mean, as fine as I can be, which honestly is not very fine if I'm being honest. But you know what? I'm getting through life, and that's all you can ask for sometimes. Even if it's not optimal. Sometimes all you can ask for is to get through it all. My mic is quite quiet, actually. Yeah, that is quiet. Hang on, let's turn that up a bit. How's that? Yeah, okay. That's okay. You're just giving more hate to the school? Trust me, Axolotl, hatred will get you nowhere in life. It'll just leave you a bitter and disheveled old man. Like me. Void of any dreams or hopes for the world. Ah, well. But yeah, what's going on? What's happened to you at school, mate? What's going on, bud? Father, I do say my studies at school, my schooling studies have been going most wonderful. Good job there, Timothy. Now it will not have to kill you. Thank you, Father. Your mercy is most appreciated. Indeed, without your mercy, I perhaps would have drowned when you threw me into the river in Calcutta. Indeed you would have, Timothy. What am I talking about? Anyway, what was I gonna do? Oh right, yeah, we have stuff to do. We're reading tonight. Yeah. Someone almost broke a window. They threw a milk carton at the wall and there was spilled milk everywhere before the math test. Math. Not maths. Like the Brits say. Because people are only smart enough to know one type of mathematics. And the teacher came in. Well, you know what they say. No point crying over spilled milk. Anyway. Shall we get on with the show? I'm thinking of doing this voice more when I get the new model in. So that I can, I don't know, play more of a character. I don't know. Anyway. Shall we get on with the show? Hang on, let me make a notification on Twitter. Bam, bam, bam. Chotto mate, mina. Hang on, so did anyone get in trouble at your school? Did anyone get in trouble? Oh, goodness heavens me, I hope not. You ever just want to drop kick a child? I mean, what? Oh, don't worry, it will only ever get worse. Remember, the worst days of your life are ahead of you. They're completely ahead of you. I know, it's reassuring, isn't it? But, yeah. Don't worry about it. like, just to let you know, like, not to, like, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Not to, like, undermine any of your difficulties you have in school. Life will, unfortunately, just get tougher. Yeah, unfortunately, the problems of life only get harder. Granted, I guess life's always hard. Existence in general is pretty hard, to be honest. Righto, let's make a tweet about this. Goes my brother, but then father had to leave, so we can't visit him till the weekend or something. Father? Goodness heavens. Father, Mama has taken ill. We must call we must call the physician. I say, to the apothecary. Should buy smelling salts to awaken her from her slumber. Sorry, don't mean to make fun of you. Except I do. Father? Father? What for art thou, father? Father, shall we not see brother this weekend? Wait, hang on, do you live separately from your brother? Sorry, I keep hiccuping. I swear we'll get onto this stuff in a second. I just need to get stuff ready. Probably should have done that before, but I was in a bit of a rush this evening. Because I've not been Actually, yeah, I lied earlier on. I've not been well for the past 2 days. I was off sick, work sick. That's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's quite lengthy time. I see. Yeah, that's not something you can just do, is it? Calm now, I can't spell right. Winnie-the-Pooh. I might not go visit brother, but I got some stuff from sister, so I'm happy with that. Oh, what did you get? Thank you for the well wishes. Yeah, it's a bit gross to hear, but I believe it was on Monday night. I woke up in the middle of the night and with an extremely bad fever, and had to go to the toilet and with the urge to vomit, and yeah, I did. So unpleasant experience. But yeah, I kind of need to be in tomorrow, because otherwise it's one of those things where they allow you to have like 1 or 2 days off, but if it gets to like 3 or 4 days off more, you have to like contact the doctor to get permission for it. Hang on 1 second, I'm just gonna try something. I'm just gonna mute the mic a second, disappear for a brief moment. Hang on. Sorry about that. Ooh, pretty angel wings. I like them. Yeah, my apologies for that. Just trying to see if I can find an Ethernet cable. I could not. I'd have to ask one of my family members if they have one later on. For now, though, we're reading. And for the occasion... Wait. Yeah. Look, it's Pooh Bear and Christopher Robin. Hey, buddies. How you doing over there? Ah. Righto, so, I don't know if you've been in for the reading streams before, but, if I remember correctly, we were on the expedition for the North Pole, which we just finished. So... Ah, yeah. So I'm sure you've heard of Winnie-the-Pooh, but in case you haven't, so Winnie-the-Pooh is the original book of it at least, by A.A. Milne, with illustrations by E.H. Shepard, one of which you can see on here. First time I'm reading a reading stream, pretty sure. Excellent then. Right, so, yeah, this is, A.A. Milne is narrating stories to his child, Christopher Robin, about his teddy bear, Winnie-the-Pooh, and his friends who live in the 100-acre wood. And it's rather interesting, actually. So, A.A. Milne is writing from a first-person perspective as a fictional version of himself, writing stories, and the writer A.A. Milne is writing these stories for his son, who's named Christopher. The fictional version of A.A. Milne, who's the narrator of the book, is making these stories up in the book for his fictional son, Christopher Robin, and all these stories he's telling his fictional son all involve another fictional version of Christopher Robin, like engaging in adventures with his teddy bear, who is both belonging to the fictional Christopher Robin and the real boy, who is A.A. Milne's son. It's like the fictional version of a real teddy bear. And it's, yeah, so it's a fictional version of a real teddy bear, and a fictional version of a real boy, being a fictional version of a real author, and the fictional version of the author is telling these stories about fictional versions to a fictional character. How weird is that? It reminds me very much of 1001 Nights, or Arabian Nights, in which it is stories within stories within stories, as the very intelligent minister's daughter Scheherazade basically gets out of being getting laid and then murdered by this enraged king, by constantly telling him stories and saying, oh, well, if you want to hear the next part of the story, you'll have to wait until tomorrow. And that's how she keeps going. But anyway, so, yeah, this is just a bunch of short stories, essentially, about Winnie-the-Pooh and friends. Perhaps in the future I will try and get a digital copy of this so I can show the images on screen, because the artwork of E.H. Shepard is very iconic. I'm sure you've seen a bunch of this kind of artwork on things beforehand, but the artwork of E.H. Shepard is truly iconic and very wonderful, lovely to see. And I'd love to be able to show it when I read it, so mayhaps I'll try and invest in a digital copy through an e-reader of some kind. Okay, one more sip of water and then we'll move on reading. Chapter 9, in which Piglet is entirely surrounded by water. It's rained and it's rained and it's rained. Piglet told himself that never, in all his life, and he was goodness knows how old, 3, was it 4? Were it 3, was it, or was it 4? Never had seen so much rain. Days and days and days. If only, he thought, as he looked out of the window, I had been in Pooh's house or Christopher Robin's house. He didn't hiccup. Or Christopher Robin's house. Or Rabbit's house when it began to rain. Then I should have a company all this time instead of being here all alone, with nothing to do except wonder when it will stop. And he imagined himself with Pooh saying, "Did you ever see such rain, Pooh?" And Pooh saying, "Isn't it awful, Piglet?" And Piglet saying, "I wonder how it is over Christopher Robin's way." And Pooh and I'll get the hiccups out eventually. Let's just keep going with it. And Pooh saying, "I should think poor old Rabbit is about flooded out by this time." It would have been a jolly talk like this, and really, it wasn't much good having anything exciting like floods if you couldn't share them with somebody. For it was rather exciting. The little dry ditches in which Piglet had nosed about so often had become streams. The little streams across which he had splashed were rivers, and the river, between whose steep banks they had played so happily, had sprawled out of its own bed, and was taking up so much room everywhere that Piglet was beginning to wonder whether it would be coming into his bed soon. Oh yeah, do let me know if the sound is okay. If I'm too loud, if the music's too loud, please do let me know. And be honest about it, don't just like say, "Oh, it's fine." If something's too loud, let me know, please. "It's a little anxious," he said to himself, "to be a very small animal entirely surrounded by water." Christopher Robin and Christopher Robin and Pooh could escape by climbing trees, and Kanga could escape by jumping, and Rabbit could escape by burrowing, and Owl could escape by flying, and Eeyore could escape by making a loud noise until rescued, and here am I, surrounded by water, and I can't do anything. I was watching and reading books related to Winnie-the-Pooh when I was little. I see. I'm guessing those are like the Disney versions, though. Not the originals, is that correct? It went on raining, and every day the water got a little higher, until now it was nearly up to Piglet's window. And he still hadn't done anything. You can hear the paper moving. It's a hardback copy. This belongs to a family member. They've been gracious enough to let me borrow it. "There's Pooh," he thought to himself. "Pooh hasn't much brain, but he never comes to any harm. He does silly things and they turn out right. Oh, there's Owl. Owl hasn't exactly got a brain, but he knows things. He would know the right thing to do when surrounded by water. Oh, there's Rabbit. He hasn't learnt in books, but he can always think of a clever plan. Oh, and there's Kanga. She isn't clever, Kanga, but she would be so anxious about Roo that she would do a good thing to do without thinking about it. And there's Eeyore. And Eeyore is so miserable anyhow that he wouldn't mind about this. But I wonder what Christopher Robin would do." He's just kind of roasting everyone a bit. Then suddenly, he remembered a story which Christopher Robin had told him about a man on a desert island who had written something in a bottle and thrown it into the sea. And Piglet thought if he wrote something in a bottle and threw it in the water, perhaps somebody would come and rescue him. He left the window and began to search his house. All of it that wasn't underwater, and at last he found a pencil and a small piece of dry paper and a book and a bottle with a cork to it. And he wrote on one side of the paper, "Help! Piglet. Me." That's Piglit. So he spelled it wrong. And on the other side, "It's me, Piglet. Help." Then he put the paper in the bottle, and he corked the bottle up as tightly as he could, and he leant out of his window as far as he could lean without falling in, and he threw the bottle as far as he could throw. Splash! And in a little while, it bobbed up again on the water, and he watched it floating away, slowly away in the distance, until his eyes ached with looking, and sometimes he thought it was the bottle, and sometimes he thought it was just a ripple on the water, which he was following, and then suddenly he knew that he would never see it again, and that he had done all that he could do to save himself. So now, he thought, somebody else will have to do something, and I hope they will do it soon, because if they don't, I shall have to swim, which I can't, and so I probably do it soon. And then he gave a very long sigh, and said, "I wish Pooh was here. It's so much more friendly with two." When the rain began, Pooh was asleep. It rained and it rained, and it rained, and he slept, and he slept, and he slept. He had a tiring day. You remember how he discovered the North Pole? Well, he was so proud of this that he asked Christopher Robin if there was any other poles, such as a bear of little brain might discover. There's the South Pole, said Christopher Robin, and I expect there's an East Pole and a West Pole, though people don't like talking about them. Pooh was very excited when he heard this, and suggested that they should have an expedition to discover the East Pole, but Christopher Robin had thought of something else to do with Kanga, so Pooh went out to discover the East Pole by himself. Whether he discovered it or not, I forget. But he was so tired when he got home that, in the very middle of his supper, after he had been eating for a little more than half an hour, he fell fast asleep in his chair and slept and slept and slept. They're very, different characters, I think, than the Disney versions. They have much more flaws to them, I think. Then, suddenly, he was dreaming. He was at the East Pole, and it was a very cold pole, with the coldest sort of snow and ice all over it. He had found a beehive to sleep in, but there wasn't room for his legs, so he had left them outside, and wild woozles such as the inhabit the East Pole came and nibbled all the fur off his legs to make nests for their young. And the more they nibbled, the colder his legs got, until suddenly he woke up with an ow! And there he was, sitting in his chair with his feet in the water, and water all around him. Oh, yeah, that's the right page. He splashed to his door and looked out. This is serious, said Pooh. I must have an escape. So he took his largest pot of honey and escaped with it to a broad branch. Of his tree. Sorry, I keep making mistakes. To a broad branch of his tree, well above the water, and then he climbed down again and escaped with another pot. And when the whole escape was finished, there was Pooh sitting on his branch, dangling his legs, and there, beside him, were 10 pots of honey. Man has his priorities straight. 2 days later, there was Pooh, sitting on his branch, dangling his legs, and there, beside him, were 4 pots of honey. 3 days later, there was Pooh, sitting on his branch, dangling his legs, and there, beside him, was 1 pot of honey. 4 days later, there was Pooh. And it was on the morning of the 4th day that Piglet's bottle came floating past him, and with one loud cry of "Honey!" Pooh plunged into the water, seized the bottle, and struggled back to his tree again. "Bother," said Pooh as he opened it. "All that wet for nothing. What's that bit of paper doing?" He took it out and looked at it. "It's a message," he said to himself. "That's what it is. And that letter is P. And so is that. And so is that. And P means Pooh. So it's a very important message to me, and I can't read it. I must find Christopher Robin, or Owl, or Piglet, one of those clever readers who can read things, and they will tell me what this message means. Only I can't swim. Bother." He's so cute. Then he had an idea, and I think that for a bear of very little brain, it was a good idea. He said to himself, "If a bottle can float, then a jar can float. And if a jar floats, I can sit on the top of it, if it's a very big jar." So he took his biggest jar and corked it up. "All boats have to have a name," he said, "so I shall call mine the Floating Bear." And with these words, he dropped his boat into the water and jumped in after it. For a little while, Pooh and the Floating Bear were uncertain as to which of them was meant to be on the top, but after trying 1 or 2 different positions, they settled down with the Floating Bear underneath, and Pooh triumphantly astride it, paddling vigorously with his feet. Christopher Robin lived at the very top of the forest. It rained and it rained and it rained, but the water couldn't come up to his house. It was rather jolly to look down into the valley and see the water all around him, but it rained so hard that he stayed indoors most of the time and thought about things. Every morning he went out with his umbrella and put a stick in the place where the water came up to, and every next morning he went out and couldn't see his stick anymore, so he put another stick in place where the water came up to, and he walked home again, and each morning he had a shorter way to walk than he had the time before. On the morning of the 5th day, he saw the water all around him, and knew that for the first time in his life, he was on a real island, which was very exciting. It was on this morning that Owl came flying over the water to say, "How do you do?" to his friend Christopher Robin. "I say, Owl," said Christopher Robin, "isn't this fun? I'm on an island." "The atmospheric conditions have been very unfavourable lately," said Owl. "The what?" "It has been raining," explained Owl. "Ah, yes," said Christopher Robin. "It has." "The flood level has reached an unprecedented height." "The who?" "There's a lot of water about," explained Owl. "Yes," said Christopher Robin, "there is. However, the prospects are rapidly becoming more favourable. At any moment—" "Have you seen Pooh?" "No. At any moment—" "I hope he's all right," said Christopher Robin. "I've been wondering about him. I expect Piglet's with him. Do you think they're all right, Owl?" "I expect so. You see, at any moment—" "Do go and see, Owl, because Pooh hasn't got very much brain, and he might do something silly, and I do love him so, Owl. Do you see, Owl?" "That's all right," said Owl. "I'll go. Back directly." And he flew off. In a little while, he was back again. "Pooh isn't there," he said. "Not there?" "He's been there. He's been sitting on a branch of his tree outside his house with 9 pots of honey. But he isn't there now." "Oh, Pooh," cried Christopher Robin, "where are you?" "Here I am," said a growly voice behind him. "Pooh!" They rushed into each other's arms. "How did you get here, Pooh?" asked Christopher Robin when he was ready to talk again. "On my boat," said Pooh proudly. "I had a very important message sent me in a bottle, and owing to having got some water in my eyes, I couldn't read it, so I brought it to you on my boat." Just can't admit that he can't read. With these proud words, you get Christopher Robin the message. "But it's from Piglet!" cried Christopher Robin, and when he had read it. "Isn't there anything about Pooh? Isn't there anything about Pooh in it?" Yeah, I'm getting the voice confused. "Isn't there anything about Pooh in it?" asked Bear, looking over his shoulder. Christopher Robin read the message aloud. "Oh, are those peas Piglets? I thought they were Poohs." "We must rescue him at once." "I thought he was with you, Pooh. Owl, could you rescue him on your back?" "Oh, I don't think so," said Owl after a grave thought. "It is doubtful if the necessary dorsal muscle. Then would you fly to him at once and say rescue is coming? And Pooh, I will think of a rescue and come as quick as we can." "Oh, don't talk, Owl. Go on, quick." And still, thinking of something to say, Owl flew off. "Now then, Pooh," said Christopher Robin, "where's your boat?" "I thought I ought to say," explained Pooh as they walked down to the shore of the island, "that it isn't just an ordinary shore or sort of boat. Sometimes it's a boat, sometimes it's more of an accident. It all depends." "Depends on what?" "On whether I am on the top of it or underneath it." "Oh. Well, where is it?" "There," said Pooh, pointing proudly to the floating bear. It wasn't what Christopher Robin had expected, and the more he looked at it, the more he thought that what a brave and clever bear Pooh was, and the more the more Christopher Robin thought this, the more Pooh looked modestly down his nose. I'm going to reread that sentence. It wasn't what Christopher Robin expected, and the more he looked at it, the more he thought what a brave and clever bear Pooh was. And the more Christopher Robin thought this, the more Pooh looked modestly down his nose and tried to pretend he wasn't. "But it's too small for 2 of us," said Christopher Robin sadly. 3 of us with Piglet." "Well, that makes it smaller still." "Oh, Pooh Bear, what shall we do?" And then this bear, Pooh Bear, Winnie-the-Pooh, FOP, friend of Piglet, RC, rabbit's companion, PD, pole discoverer, EC and TF, Eeyore's comforter and tail finder. In fact, Pooh himself said something so clever that Christopher Robin could only look at him with mouth open and eyes staring, wondering if this was really the bear of very little brain whom he had known and loved so long. "We might go in your umbrella," said Pooh. We might go in your umbrella, said Pooh. We might go in your umbrella, said Pooh. For suddenly, Christopher Robin saw that they might. He opened his umbrella and put it point downwards in the water. It floated, but wobbled. Pooh got in. He was just beginning to say that it was all right now, when he found that it wasn't. When he found that it wasn't. So after a short drink, which he didn't really want, he waddled back to Christopher Robin. Then they both got in together and wobbled no longer. I shall call this boat the Brain of Pooh, said Christopher Robin, and the Brain of Pooh set sail forthwith in a southwesterly direction, revolving gracefully. You can imagine Piglet's joy when at last the ship came in sight of him. In after years, he liked to think that he had been in very great danger during the terrible flood, but the only danger he had really been in was the last half hour of his imprisonment, when Owl, who had just flown up, sat on a branch of his tree to comfort him, and told him a very long story about an aunt who had once laid a seagull's egg by mistake, and the story went on and on, rather like this sentence, until Piglet, who was listening out of his window without much hope, went to sleep quietly and naturally, slipping slowly out of the window towards the water until he was only hanging on by his toes, at which moment, luckily, a sudden loud squawk from Owl, which was really part of the story, being what his aunt said, woke the Piglet up, and just gave him time to jerk himself back into safety and say, "Oh, how interesting, and, did she?" When, well, you can imagine his joy, when at last he saw the good ship, the Brain of Pooh, Captain C. Robin, First Mate P. Bear, coming over the sea to rescue him. And as that is really the end of the story, I'm very tired after that last sentence. I think I shall stop there. So yeah, that's the end of chapter 9. It's very funnily written. I'm really surprised by just how funny it is. Like Milne is just a very comedic writer. I don't know what else he's written, honestly. But it's very good. Yeah, very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. You ever just see a bunch of these bot accounts? It's weird. They're all bot accounts. They're fucking creepy. Anyway, well, nothing I can do about it. To block a bunch of them eventually at one point. But now though, we have other things to do. We shall carry on with the story, shall we, of Winnie-the-Pooh and the blustery day. One second. Oh yeah. Let's have a look. I'm just going to check if the stream's okay on my end. I just noticed. When it just went on Twitch then on my phone, I noticed that Bebe, the VTuber, was on. Oh. Yeah, there's no delay there. Nice. And unless she was on early in the morning as well. And I get why you do 2 streams in one day. It feels nice to have a break and a change of pace midday. So yeah, I don't know. I've done it before, and it's nice to do like 2 streams in a day. If you have like a break in between them, like maybe like a morning break and an evening break. A morning stream and evening stream even. Anyway, let's go on. Chapter 10, in which Christopher Robin gives a poo party, and we say goodbye. Oh, is this the last story? Maybe it is. The first book. Oh, indeed. Yeah, this is going to be the last story of the first book of Winnie-the-Pooh. Interesting. That's quite a long one as well. Well then, let's get on with it, shall we? This actually works out, because I've not been well today, so I might be short to stream anyway. Let's carry on then. Chapter 10, in which Christopher Robin gives a poo party, and we say goodbye. One day, when the sun had come back over the forest, bringing with it the scent of May, and all the streams of the forest were tinkling happily to find themselves their own pretty shape again, and the little pools lay dreaming of the life they had seen, and the big things they had done, and in the warmth and quiet of the forest, the cuckoo was trying over his voice carefully, and listening to see if he liked it, and the wood pigeons were complaining gently to themselves, in their lazy, comfortable way, that it was the other fellow's fault, but it didn't matter very much. On such a day as this, Christopher Robin whistled in a special way he had. An owl came flying out of the 100-acre wood to see what he wanted. "Owl," said Christopher Robin, "I am going to give a party." "You are you?" said Owl. "And it's to be a special sort of party, because it's because of what Pooh did when he did what he did to save Piglet from the flood." "Oh, that's what it's for, is it?" said Owl. "Yes, so will you tell Pooh as quickly as you can, and tell the others, because it will be tomorrow." "Oh, it will it?" said Owl, still being as helpful as possible. "So will you go and tell them, Owl?" Owl tried to think of something very wise to say, but couldn't, so he flew off to tell the others. I like that Owl is kind of like bumbling intelligent guy. He's like, he thinks he's really smart, but he's kind of just like lacking in a lot of areas. But couldn't, so he flew off to tell the others, and the first person he told was Pooh. "Pooh," he said, "Christopher Robin is giving a party." "Oh," said Pooh, and then, seeing that Owl expected him to say something else, he said, "Will it be those little cake things with pink sugar icing?" Owl felt it was rather beneath him to talk about little cake things with pink sugar icing, so he told Pooh exactly what Christopher Robin had said, and flew off to Eeyore. "A party for me?" thought Pooh to himself. "How grand!" And he began to wonder if all the other animals would know that it was a special Pooh party. A special Pooh party. And if Christopher Robin had told them about the floating bear and the brain of Pooh, and all the wonderful ships he had invented and sailed on, and he began to think about how awful it would be if everybody had forgotten about it, and nobody quite knew what the party was for. And the more he thought like this, the more the party got muddled in his mind, like a dream when nothing goes right. And the dream began to sing itself over in his head until it became a sort of song. It was an anxious Pooh song. 3 cheers for Pooh, for who? For Pooh. Why, what did he do? I thought you knew. He saved his friend from a wetting bear. 3 cheers for Pooh, for where? For bear. He couldn't swim, but he rescued him. He rescued you. Oh, listen, do. I'm talking to Pooh. Of who? Of who? Of Pooh. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. Well, Pooh was a bear of enormous brain. To say it again, of enormous brain, of enormous what? Well, he ate a lot. I don't know if he could swim or not, but he managed to float on a sort of boat. A sort of what? Well, a sort of a pot. So now, let's give him 3 hearty cheers. 3 hearty cheers. 3 hearty witches, rather. And hope he'll be with us for years and years, and grow in health and wisdom and riches. 3 cheers for Pooh. For who? For Pooh. 3 cheers for Bear. For where? For Bear. 3 cheers and wonderful Winnie-the-Pooh. Just tell me, somebody, what did he do? While this was going on inside him, Owl was talking to Eeyore. "Eeyore," he said, "Christopher Robin is giving a party." "Very interesting," said Eeyore. I suppose they'll be sending me down the odd bits which get trodden on. Kind and thoughtful. Not at all. Don't mention it. There is an invitation for you. What's that like? An invitation? Yes, I heard you. Who dropped it? There isn't anything to eat. It's asking you to the party tomorrow. Eeyore shook his head slowly. You mean Piglet, the little fellow with the excited ears? That's Piglet. I'll tell him. No, said Al, getting quite fussy. It's you! Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Christopher Robin said all of them. Tell all of them. All of them except Eeyore? All of them, said Owl sulkily. Ah, said Eeyore. A mistake, no doubt, but still I shall come. Only don't blame me if it rains. But it didn't rain. Oh, by the way, yeah, Eeyore is so depressed in these stories. He's like such a sad guy. He's just a miserable kid. But still I shall come, only don't blame me if it rains. But it didn't rain. Christopher Robin had made a long table out of some long pieces of wood, and they all sat round it. Christopher Robin sat at one end, and Pooh sat at the other. And between them, on one side were Owl and Eeyore and Piglet, and between them on the other side were Rabbit and Roo and Kanga. And all of Rabbit's friends and relations spread themselves about on the grass, and waited, hopefully in case anybody spoke to them, or dropped anything, or asked them the time. So they're just kind of there to leech. That's funny. It was the first party to which Roo had ever been. He was very excited. As soon as ever they had sat down, he began to talk. Hello, Pooh, he squeaked. Hello, Roo, said Pooh. Roo jumped up and down his seat for a little while, and then began, Hello, Piglet, he squeaked. Wait, what's squeak? Hello, Piglet. Yeah, hello, Pooh, hello, Piglet. Piglet waved a paw at him, being too busy to say anything. Hello, Eeyore, said Roo. Eeyore nodded gloomily at him. It will rain soon. You see if it doesn't, he said. Roo looked to see if it didn't, and it didn't, so he said, Hello, Owl. And Owl said, Hello, my little fellow, in a kindly way, and went on telling Christopher Robin about an accident which had nearly happened to a friend of his whom Christopher Robin didn't know. And Kanga said to Roo, Drink up your milk first, dear, and talk afterwards. So Roo, who was drinking his milk, tried to say that he could do both at once, and so he had to be patted on the back and dried for quite a long time afterwards. Poor Roo. Kanga is just like a worried mother, and Roo's just like an excitable child. When they had all nearly eaten enough, Christopher Robin banged on the table with his spoon, and everybody stopped talking and was very silent, except Roo, who was just finishing a loud attack of hiccups and trying to look as if it was one of Rabbit's relations. This party, said Christopher Robin, is a party because of what someone did, and we all know who it was, and it's his party because of what he did. And I got a present for him, and here it is. Then he felt about a little and whispered, Where is it? I'm looking at the pictures here. There's a bunch of skunks and rats and bugs in here as well. I don't like rats, so Rabbit's friends, I'm assuming they're all part of. While he was looking, Eeyore coughed in an impressive way and began to speak. Friends, he said, including oddments. It is a great pleasure I had better say. It's a great pleasure, or perhaps I had better say, it has been a pleasure so far It has been a pleasure so far to see you at my party. What I did was nothing. Any of you, except Rabbit and Owl and Kanga, would have done the same. Oh, and Pooh. My remarks do not, of course, apply to Piglet and Roo, because they are too small. Any of you would have done the same, but it just happened to be me. It was not, I need hardly say, with an idea of getting what Christopher Robin is looking for now. And he put his front leg to his mouth and said in a loud whisper, "Try under the table. That I did what I did, but because I feel what we should all do, we can help. All do what we can to help. I feel that we should all..." said Roo accidentally. "Roo dear," said Kangaroo reproachfully. "Was it me?" asked Roo, a little surprised. "What's he all talking about?" Piglet whispered to Pooh. "I don't know," said Pooh rather dolefully. "I thought this was your party." "I thought it was once, but I suppose it isn't." "I'd sooner it was yours than Eeyore's." No one likes Eeyore, by the way, yeah. Like, Eeyore's just this miserable git, and no one really... Like, people like him, but they also kind of just, like... They also kind of put up with him, it seems. "Thought it was once, but I suppose it isn't." "I'd sooner it was yours than Eeyore's," said Piglet. "So would I," said Pooh. Said Roo again. "As I was saying," said Eeyore loudly and sternly. "As I was saying when I was interrupted by various loud sounds, I feel that..." "Here it is!" cried Christopher Robin. "Pass it down to silly old Pooh. It's for Pooh." "For Pooh?" said Eeyore. "Of course it is. The best bear in all the world." "I might have known," said Eeyore. "After all, one can't complain. I have my friends. Somebody spoke to me only yesterday. And it was last week or the week before that Rabbit bumped into me and said, 'Bother! The social round. Always something going on.'" Nobody was listening, for they were all saying, "Open it, Pooh! What is it, Pooh?" "I know what it is." "No, you don't," and other helpful remarks of this sort. And of course, Pooh was opening it as quickly as ever he could, but without cutting the string, because you never know when a bit of string might be useful. At last, it was undone. When Pooh saw what it was, he nearly fell down. He was so pleased. It was a special pencil case. There were pencils in it marked B for bear, and pencils marked HB for helping bear, and pencils marked BB for brave bear. There was a knife for sharpening the pencils, and India rubber for rubbing out anything which he had spelt wrong, and a ruler and ruling lines for the words to walk on, and inches marked on the ruler in case you wanted to know how many inches anything was, and blue pencils and red pencils, and green pencils for saying special things in blue and red and green. And all these lovely things were in little pockets of their own, in a special case which shut with a click when you clicked it. And they were all for Pooh. "Oh," said Pooh. "Oh, Pooh," said everybody else except Eeyore. "Thank you," growled Pooh, but Eeyore was saying to himself, "This writing business, pencils and whatnot, overrated if you ask me. Silly stuff, nothing in it." Later on, when they all had said goodbye and thank you to Christopher Robin, Pooh and Piglet walked home thoughtfully together. In the golden evening, and for a long time, they were silent. "When you wake up in the morning, Pooh," said Piglet at last, "what's the first thing you say to yourself?" "What's for breakfast?" said Pooh. "What do you say, Piglet?" "I say, I wonder what's going to happen exciting today," said Piglet. Pooh nodded thoughtfully. "It's the same thing," he said. "And what did happen?" said Christopher Robin. "When?" "Next morning." "I don't know." "Could you think and tell me and Pooh sometime?" "If you wanted it very much." "Pooh does," said Christopher Robin. He gave a deep sigh, picked up his bear and the leg, and walked off to the door, trailing Winnie-the-Pooh behind him. At the door, he turned and said, "Coming to see me have a bath?" "No, coming to see me have my bath?" "I might," I said. "Was Pooh's pencil case any better than mine?" "Oh, it's just the same," I said. He nodded and went out. And in a moment I heard Winnie-the-Pooh bump, 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 going up the stairs behind him. And that's the last story in the book. Christopher Robin going to his bath. Dedication. You gave me Christopher Robin, and then you breathed new life in Pooh. Whatever of each has left my pen goes homing back to you. My book is ready and comes to greet the mother it longs to see. It will be my present to you, my sweet, if it weren't your gift to me. Dedication by the author there. By the way, the 100-acre wood is simply part of the way that it's set. So it says here, this is a hardback version which has some information on the book. Yeah. The characters of Pooh, Piglet, Eeyore, Tigger, Kanga, and Roo were based upon the real nursery toys belonging to A.A. Milne's son, Christopher Robin, and their adventures are set in the Ashdown Forest, where Milne and his family lived. So I guess like the 100-acre wood is meant to be this like fictional part of the Ashdown Forest. The artist E.H. Shepard lovingly recreated the forest and the toys in his drawings, and the places he drew can still be seen today. That might be nice then to go and see Ashdown Forest. I wonder where it is. But yeah, that's the end of the book. The next book is The House at Pooh Corner. Oh, hang on, here's a bit more about A.A. Milne and E.H. Shepard. A.A. Milne was born in London in 1882. By the time his first book of poems for children was published in 1924, he was already an established dramatist and novelist and a regular contributor to Punch magazine. Punch magazine was a very famous magazine for like all the satire in it and such. Milne always acknowledged that it was his wife Daphne and his son Christopher Robin who gave life to the nursery animals which inspired Winnie-the-Pooh, the bear who became the most popular and enduring of all his creations. E.H. Shepard became known as the man who drew Pooh, but was also an acclaimed artist in his own right. He studied at the Royal Academy of Arts and later, like Milne, worked for Punch magazine. Shepard's witty and affectionate illustrations of Winnie-the-Pooh and his friends in the 100-acre wood are an inseparable part of the appeal of the stories, and his drawings have become classics recognized all over the world. Or unless like 100-acre wood is like a fictional version of Ashdown Forest. Do you want to carry on with one more story? How long are we streaming for now? An hour. Not very long. I wonder. Actually, hang on. Let's just take a moment to have a look at where Ashdown Forest is. What's that postcard? Let's have a look here. Oh, it's this far down south. Oh, that's very far down south. I mean, it makes sense if it was like, if it was near London. God damn. Oh my lord. That's something you can just go and visit then, it seems. It's like a full holiday to do. Interesting. Right out. One moment then. I'm just gonna get some water. I'll be back in a brief moment. Hang on. One moment, sorry. Right, sorry about that. Right, yeah, tell you what, okay. Let's read one more story. Let's read the first story from the second book, The House at Pooh Corner. Let's get that again. So yeah, this is the second book, The House of Pooh Corner. I believe this came out in 2 years after the first one, I believe. Just double check. Yeah, the first one was 1926. This was 1928. So I was thinking then, wait, would Christopher Robin have had to take part in the Second World War? And like, maybe, I mean, if he was a child at the time, 1926, when the Second World War started, he would have been like a teenager. Potentially like mid to late teens. So there's a good chance he could have been potentially conscripted. I don't know. Interesting. Anyway. An introduction, a contradiction, this is called. An introduction is to introduce people, but Christopher Robin and his friends, who have already been introduced to you, are now going to say goodbye. So this is the opposite. When we asked Pooh what the opposite of an introduction was, he said, "The what of a what?" Which didn't help us much, as we had hoped. But luckily, Owl kept his head and told us what the opposite of an introduction to my dear Pooh was a contradiction. And, as he is very good at long words, I am sure that's what it is. Why we are having a contradiction is because last week when Christopher Robin said to me, "What about the story you were going to tell me about what happened to Pooh?" when I happened to say very quickly, "What about 900 times 107? And when he had done that one, we had one about cows going through a gate at 2 a minute, and 300 in the field. And so how many are left after an hour and a half? We find these very exciting. And when Pooh, and when we have been excited quite enough, we curl up and go to sleep. And Pooh, sitting wakeful a little longer on his chair by our pillow, thinks grand thoughts to himself about nothing, until he too closes his eyes and nods his head, and follows us on tiptoe into the forest. There still, we have magic adventures, more wonderful than any I have told you about. But now, when we wake up in the morning, they are gone before we can catch hold of them. How did the last one begin? One day, when Pooh was walking in the forest, there were 107 cows on the gate. No, you see, we have lost it. It was the best, I think. Well, here are some of the other ones, all that we shall remember now. But of course, it isn't really goodbye, because the forest will always be there, and anybody who is friendly with bears can find it. Well, that's sad. Yeah, I guess he only did write 2 stories on Winnie-the-Pooh. 2 books even. It's like 20 stories, I guess. So, Chapter 1, in which a house is built at Pooh Corner for Eeyore. One day, when Pooh had nothing else to do, he thought he would do something, so he went round to Piglet's house to see what Piglet was doing. It was still snowing as he stumped over the White Forest track, and he expected to find Piglet warming his toes in front of his fire. Excuse me. But to his surprise, he saw that the door was open, and the more he looked inside, the more Piglet wasn't there. "He's out," said Pooh sadly. "That's what it is. He's not in. I'll have to go on a fast-thinking walk by myself. Bother." But first he thought he would knock very loudly just to make quite sure, and while he waited for Piglet not to answer, he jumped up and down to keep warm, and a hum came suddenly into his head, which seemed to him a good hum, such as his hummed hopefully to others. "The more it snows, tiddly-pom, the more it goes, tiddly-pom, the more it goes, tiddly-pom, on snowing. And nobody knows tiddly-pom, how cold my toes, tiddly-pom, are growing. No, how cold my toes, tiddly-pom, are growing." "So what I'll do," said Pooh, "is I'll do this. I'll just go home first and see what the time is, and perhaps I'll put a muffler around my neck, and then I'll go and see Eeyore and sing it to him." He hurried back to his own house, and his mind was so busy on the way with the hum, he was getting ready for Eeyore, that when he suddenly saw Piglet sitting in his best armchair, he could only stand there rubbing his head, wondering whose house he was in. "Hello, Piglet," he said. "I thought you were out." No," said Piglet. "It's you who are out, Pooh." "So it was," said Pooh. "I knew one of us was." He looked up at his clock, which had stopped 5 minutes to 11 some weeks ago. Oh yeah, his clock is always at that, 5 to 11. "Yep, nearly 11 o'clock, said Pooh happily. We're just in time for a little smackerel of something. And he put his head in the cupboard, and then we'll go out, Piglet, and sing my song to Eeyore. I wonder if, like, Pooh wouldn't eat so much if he had a working clock then, I don't know. Which song, Pooh? The one we're going to sing to Eeyore, explained Pooh. The clock was still saying 5 minutes to 11 when Pooh and Piglet set out on their way half an hour later. The wind had dropped, and the snow, tired of rushing round in circles trying to catch itself up, now fluttered gently down until it found a place on which to rest. And sometimes the place was Pooh's nose, and sometimes it wasn't. And in a little while, Piglet was wearing a white muffler round his neck, and feeling more snowy behind the ears than he had ever felt before. Pooh, he said at last, and a little timidly, because he didn't want Pooh to think he was giving in. I was just wondering, how would it be if we went home now and practiced your song, and then sang it to Eeyore tomorrow, or the next day, when we happen to see him? That's a very good idea, Piglet, said Pooh. We'll practice it now as we go along, but it's no good going home to practice it because it's a special outdoor song, which has to be sung in the snow. Are you sure? Asked Piglet anxiously. Well, you'll see, Piglet, when you listen, because this is how it begins. The more it snows, tiddly-pom. Tiddly what? Said Piglet. Pom, said Pooh. I put that in to make it more hummy. The more it goes, tiddly-pom, the more it... Did you say snows? Yes, but that was before the tiddly-pom. It was a different tiddly-pom, said Pooh, feeling rather muddled now. I'll sing it too properly, and then you'll see. So he sang it again. The more it snows, tiddly-pom. The more it goes, tiddly-pom. The more it goes, tiddly-pom, on snowing. And nobody knows, tiddly-pom, how cold my toes, tiddly-pom. How cold my toes, tiddly-pom, are growing. This is what they do. They think, oh yeah, let's go over to my friend's house and sing this little song I made up, and that's my day. What a life. He sang it like that, which is much the best way of singing it. And when he had finished, he waited for Piglet to say that, out of all the outdoor hums for snowy weather he had ever heard, this was the best. And, after thinking the matter out carefully, Piglet said, Pooh, he said solemnly, it isn't the toes so much as the ears. By this time, they were getting near Eeyore's gloomy place, which was where he lived, and as it was still very snowy behind Piglet's ears, and he was getting tired of it, they turned into a little pine wood and sat down on the gate which led into it. They were out of the snow now, but it was very cold, and to keep themselves warm they sang Pooh's song right through 6 times, Piglet doing the tiddly-poms and Pooh doing the rest, and both of them thumping on top of the gate with pieces of stick at the proper places. And in a little while they felt much warmer, and were able to talk again. I've been thinking, said Pooh. What I've been thinking about is this. I've been thinking about Eeyore. What about Eeyore? Well, poor Eeyore has nowhere to live. Oh, he has, said Piglet. You have a house. Piglet and I have a house, and they are very good houses. And Crystal Robin has a house, and Owl and Kanga and Rabbit have houses, and even Rabbit's friends and relations have houses or some things, but poor Eeyore has nothing. So what I've been thinking is, let's build him a house. That, said Piglet, is a grand idea. Where shall we build it? We will build it here, said Pooh, just by this wood out of the wind, because this is where I thought of it. We will call this Pooh Corner, and we will build an Eeyore house, which sticks at Pooh Corner for Eeyore. There was a heap of sticks on the other side of the wood, said Piglet. I saw them, lots and lots, all piled up. Thank you, Piglet, said Pooh. What you have just said will be great help to us, and because of it, I could call this place Pooh and Piglet Corner, if Pooh Corner didn't sound better, which it does, being smaller and more like a corner. Come on. What an asshole. So they got down off the gate and went round to the other side of the wood to fetch the sticks. Christopher Robin had spent the morning indoors going to Africa and back, and he had just got off the boat and was wondering what it was like outside. when who should come knocking at the door but Eeyore. "Oh, hello, Eeyore," said Christopher Robin as he opened the door and came out. "How are you?" "It's snowing still," said Eeyore gloomily. "So it is." "Oh, and freezing." "It is." "No, is it?" "Yes," said Eeyore. "However," he said, brightening up a little, "we haven't had an earthquake lately." "What's the matter, Eeyore?" "Nothing, Christopher Robin, nothing important. I suppose you haven't seen a house or whatnot anywhere about?" "What sort of house? What sort of a house?" "Just a house." "Who lives there?" "I do. At least I thought I did. But I suppose I don't. After all, we can't all have houses." "But, Eeyore, I didn't know. I always thought I didn't know how it is. I don't know how it is, Christopher Robin. But what with all this snow and one thing and another, not to mention icicles and such like, it isn't so hot in my field about 3 o'clock in the morning as some people think it is. It isn't close, if you know what I mean. It isn't close, if you know what I mean. Not so as to be uncomfortable. It isn't stuffy, in fact, Christopher Robin. No, in fact, Christopher Robin," he went on to a loud whisper, "quite between ourselves, I don't tell anybody. It's cold." "Oh, Eeyore." "And I said to myself, the others will be sorry if I'm getting myself all cold. They haven't got brains, any of them, only grey fluff that's blown into their heads by mistake. And they don't think, but if it goes on snowing for another 6 weeks or so, one of them will begin to say to himself, 'Eeyore can't be so very much too hot about 3 o'clock in the morning,' and then it will get about and they'll be sorry." "Oh, Eeyore," said Christopher Robin, feeling very sorry already. "I don't mean you, Christopher Robin, you're different. So what it all comes to is that I built myself a house down by my little wood." "Did you really? How exciting!" "The really exciting part," said Eeyore, "is that, in his most melancholy voice, is that when I left it this morning, it was there. When I came back, it wasn't. Not at all. Very natural. And it was only Eeyore's house. But still, I just wondered. And it was only Eeyore's house, but still, I just wondered." Sorry if I'm reading poorly here. I'm not reading ahead enough. Christopher Robin didn't stop to wonder. He was already back in his house, putting on his waterproof hat, his waterproof boots, and his waterproof mackintosh as fast as he could. "We'll go and look for it at once," he called out to Eeyore. "Sometimes," said Eeyore, "when people have quite finished taking a person's house, there are 1 or 2 bits which they don't want and are rather glad for the first person to take back, if you know what I mean. So I thought if we just went—" "Come on," said Christopher Robin, and off they hurried, and in very little time they got to the corner of the field by the side of the pine wood, where Eeyore's house wasn't any longer. "There," said Eeyore. "Not there," said Eeyore. "Not a stick left. Of course, I've still got I've still got all this snow to do with what I like. One mustn't complain." But Christopher Robin wasn't listening to Eeyore. He was listening to something else. "Can't you hear it?" he asked. "What is it? Somebody laughing?" "Listen." They both listened, and they heard a deep, gruff voice saying in a singing voice that the more it snowed, the more it went on snowing, and a small, high voice tiddly-pomming in between. "It's Pooh," said Christopher Robin excitedly. "Possibly," said Eeyore. "And Piglet," said Christopher Robin excitedly. "Probably," said Eeyore. "What we want is a trained bloodhound." The words of the song suddenly changed. "We finished our house," sang the gruff voice. So Pooh's got a notably gruff voice and he growls. Interesting. "Tiddly-pom," sang the squeaky one. "It's a beautiful house. It's a beautiful house. Tiddly-pom. I wish it were mine. Tiddly-pom." "Pooh!" shouted Christopher Robin. The singers on the gate stopped suddenly. "It's Christopher Robin," said Pooh eagerly. "He's round by the place where we got all the sticks from." "He's round by the place where we got all the sticks from," said Piglet. I'm not reading ahead enough. "Come on," said Pooh. They climbed down their gate and hurried round the corner of the wood, Pooh making welcoming noises all the way. Why, here is Eeyore, said Pooh, when he had finished hugging Christopher Robin, and he nudged Piglet, and Piglet nudged him, and they thought to themselves what a little surprise they had got ready. Hello, Eeyore. Same to you, Pooh Bear, and twice on Thursday, said Eeyore gloomily. Before Pooh could say why Thursday, Christopher Robin began to explain the sad story of Eeyore's lost house. Pooh and Piglet listened. Their eyes seemed to get bigger and bigger. Where did you say it was? Asked Pooh. Just here, said Eeyore. Made of sticks? Yes. Oh, said Piglet. What? Said Eeyore. I just said, oh, said Piglet nervously. And so, as to seem quite at ease, he hummed Tiddly-Palm once or twice, in a what shall we do now kind of way. You're sure it was a house? Said Pooh. I mean, you're sure the house was just here? Of course I am, said Eeyore. And he murmured to himself, no brain at all, some of them. I just realized I'm on the wrong page. Oh, that's embarrassing. Okay. No brain at all, some of them. Like me, I guess. I've got no brain at all. What? Why, what's the matter, Pooh? Asked Christopher Robin. Well, said Pooh. The fact is, said Pooh. Well, the fact is, said Pooh. You see, said Pooh. It's like this, said Pooh. And something seemed to tell him that he wasn't explaining very well, and he nudged Piglet again. It's like this, said Piglet. Only warmer, he added after deep thought. What's warmer? The other side of the wood, where Eeyore's house is. My house, said Eeyore. My house was here. No, said Piglet. The other side of the wood. Because of being warmer, said Pooh. But I ought to know. Come and look, said Piglet simply, and he led them away. There wouldn't be two houses, said Pooh. Not so close together. They came round the corner, and there was Eeyore's house, looking as comfy as anything. There you are, said Piglet. Inside as well as outside, said Pooh proudly. Eeyore went inside, and came out again. It's a remarkable thing, he said. It is my house, and I built it where I said I did. So the wind must have blown it here, and the wind blew it right over the wood and blew it down here. And here it is good as ever. In fact, better in places. Much better, said Pooh and Piglet together. It just shows what can be done by taking a little trouble, said Eeyore. Do you see, Pooh? Do you see, Piglet? Brains first and then hard work. Look at it. That's the way to build houses, said Eeyore proudly. So they left him in it, and Christopher Robin went back to lunch with his friends Roo and Piglet. And on the way, they told him the awful mistake they had made. When he had finished laughing, they all sang the outdoor song for snowy weather, the rest of the way home. Piglet, who was still not quite sure of his voice, putting on the tiddly-poms again. And I know it seemed... Wait, Piglet, who was still not quite sure of his voice, putting in the tiddly-poms again. And I know it seems easy, said Piglet to himself, but it isn't everyone who could do it. And that's the end of the story. Oh, the next one is the first appearance of Tigger, I see. How exciting. Nice. Still checking the mic. I'm constantly anxious now about, like, mic tests and stuff. I'm just having to skim through this Tigger section to see what Tigger's character is like. Excuse me. Yeah, like, considering I guess Tigger's popularity is huge now, and I think a lot of this is thanks to the Disney version of it, but yeah, he wasn't introduced until the second book. Most interesting. Anyway. I think that'll do it for me for today. A short stream again, but I've not been well, so I'd rather take it easy than overdo it on stuff. Hopefully I'll be back this Friday with the stream. If not, yeah. Bum ba bum 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 ma ba da bum ma ba da. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to see how I'm doing. Yeah. Righto. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoy the stories, even if I have been suboptimal at reading them sometimes. Yeah, thank you for watching. I very much appreciate it, and I shall hopefully see you again soon, this Friday, if anything, for any luck goes by. On Saturday, we're doing a show. I'm going to be showcasing my new model, and I will also be doing a watch-along of the 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie, starring Bob Hoskins. Oh, dear me. But yeah, that film might be cursed, it might not be, I don't know. But we're going to see how it is. You don't get a film like that anymore. But yeah, hopefully it'll be fun. Fun to kill some time. Righto then, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely rest of your day, a lovely rest of your evening, afternoon, and good night. Bye!